Greetings everybody, I hope that you guys are good. Let's now have a very quick look at NASDAQ100, and we are on the weekly chart, as you guys can see. And the first thing that I can see in regards to the weekly chart is the fact that we have this candlestick over here. It is a bearish candlestick with a relatively small body and a long lower wick, and this tells us that where that wick ends right at the bottom, there's a lot of liquidity sitting at that point. And as much as the current weekly candle seems as though it is preparing to push further up, the market needs to come down, in my humble opinion, to grab the liquidity that we have at this point. And that is because liquidity represents money that needs to be triggered by the market. So in other words, there's a lot of money sitting at this point, right? Anyway, let's proceed. So what else do we see in regards to the weekly chart of NASDAQ100? Another thing that I see is that we seem to have this overextended W structure. It's an overextended W structure because the second leg of that structure is lower than the first leg. And as much as I'm saying that at this level we have a lot of liquidity that needs to be grabbed by the market, what may actually happen is we might see the market actually push further out to give us this very nice W structure, as I've said, and it would have a neckline at that point, right? And the neckline would be also a very strong level of resistance, as you guys can see. However, at this point in time, this potential W structure is not that important, and the reason why I say so is because if you look closely, we actually have an opposing overextended M structure over here, which has a neckline more or less at that point. And we saw price breaking to the bottom side of that neckline and then heading to the neckline to test it, and at this point is where we would have looked for potential selling opportunities. And that is because, guys, as I've explained multiple times, when it comes to M structures, we want to see price breaking to the bottom side of that neckline, heading back to the neckline to test it, and at the neckline is where we would look for potential selling opportunities, right? I hope that makes sense. Anyway, let's proceed. I'm just gonna add a neckline to that M structure as well, so just bear with me, guys, while I do so. Let's have a look. Let's see, neckline. So we could say that more or less this is the neckline of, as I've said, this overextended M structure, right? So what else do we see, guys? Another thing that I see that is also very much important is the fact that we have this candlestick over here. It is a bullish candlestick with a relatively small body and a long upper wick, and similar to this candlestick over here, it too is holding a lot of liquidity at this point, at this level. And liquidity, as I've said, is money that needs to be triggered by the market at one point or another. So I'm just gonna mark this candlestick as well. There we go. Right, there we go, right? So remember, guys, as much as I spoke about this huge potential W structure as well as this M structure, we also seem to have what seems to be another W structure forming itself at this point. Can you guys see that? However, it is still very much information, and in order for it to be valid, I think we need at least one more bullish candlestick to be on this side, and then we can take it seriously. But for now, it is not important, and we can just disregard it, just for now, right? Anyway, let's proceed. So what else do we see, guys, in regards to the weekly chart of NASDAQ100? At this point, I don't see much, but we do see that the market is rather bullish, and chances are that the market may actually, as I've said, head to this level to retest it. And if it does so, at this level is where we would look for potential selling opportunities, and that is because this level, as I've said, is a very strong resistance level, and we've already had a touch in the past, and in the future we might get another rejection at that point, and then that's where we might potentially sell. Anyway, from here I'm just gonna head down to the daily chart, and here we are on the daily chart. I'm just gonna fix my neckline. Let's have a look. And just to recap a bit, guys, remember on the weekly chart we spoke about how we have this overextended M structure which has a neckline at that point, and we also spoke about how we could potentially have a W structure at this point, and I said that in order for this W structure to be valid, we need at least one weekly candlestick to close as a bullish candlestick on the side, right? So we don't have to pay too much attention to that particular W structure. Anyway, just to zoom in, so as much as we have all of those structures, guys, can you see that we also have another structure over here, which is an M structure, which has a neckline more or less at this point, right? And we saw price breaking to the bottom side of that neckline, going back to the neckline to test it, and at this point is where we would have looked for potential selling opportunities. However, having said that, can you guys see that the neckline of this particular M structure is struggling in regards to holding price, right? Can you see that? Because ideally, as I've said, guys, we want to see price break into the bottom side. Let me just actually draw it. We want to see price break into the bottom side of that neckline, heading back to the neckline, and we want to see the neckline rejecting price so that we can sell. However, as I've said, guys, we can see that the market is rather bullish and it seems to be pushing past this very strong resistance area. And what may actually happen, as I've said, is that the market may push further up to first this point, because it is where we have that liquidity candlestick that I spoke about on the weekly chart, and secondly maybe this point because it is the neckline of that overextended M structure that I spoke about on the weekly chart, right? I hope what I'm drawing and saying makes sense. Nonetheless, let's proceed. So the next thing that I'm going to do in regards to this particular chart is to add my daily candle, sorry, my daily channel rather. Let's see. Just bear with me, guys, while I add my daily channel. I just want to make sure that it is as accurate as can be. There we go, more or less. Let's see, there we go. That should be fine. So what else do we see, guys, in regards to the daily chart of NASDAQ100? At this point, I don't see much really. So what I will do is head down to the H4 chart. Here we are on the H4 chart. I'm just going to fix my lines just to make sure that they are as accurate as possible. Let's see. All right, there we go. Right, and here we are on the H4 chart. And just to recap on the H4 chart, guys, remember on the weekly chart we spoke about how we have just bear with me, how we have this huge overextended M structure which has a neckline at that point, right? And then on the daily chart we spoke about how we have this huge M structure which has a neckline at this point, and I said that the neckline is struggling at this point in time in regards to holding price, right? So what else do we see, guys, in regards to the H4 chart? In fact, before we continue, the first thing that I'm going to do in regards to the H4 chart is to add my H4 channel as well. So let's have a look. Just bear with me, guys, while I add my H4 channel. So we could say that this is our H4 channel, more or less. It's an awkward H4 channel because it is quite steep. Nonetheless, it is a channel. To add to this, guys, we also have, if you look closely, a W structure at this point which has a neckline at that point. Can you guys see that? I hope you guys can see that, right? And similarly, when it comes to W structures, we want to see price breaking the neckline to the upside, coming back to the neckline to test it, and at this point is where we would look for potential buying opportunities, right? So similarly, we want to see price come back to this part to test it, and then we might potentially look for buying opportunities. However, having said that, we have a bit of a dilemma. Let me just add a neckline to that W structure before I explain what I mean by a dilemma. Just bear with me, guys. I'm just going to add the neckline of this W structure, and then I'll just make the structure a different color so that we don't get confused. Just bear with me, guys. Let's see. I'll make it an orange. There we go. So just to get back to the dilemma that I've been speaking about, number one, guys, we have this huge M structure that I spoke about, which has a neckline at that point. Number two, we have this W structure that I spoke about, which also has a neckline at that point, right? So it's a bit tricky in as far as buying or selling at this point, right? And that is because we have the M structure as well as the W structure, and they both have necklines at more or less the same area. So buying at this point would be a little bit risky, right? Nonetheless, let's proceed. Let's see. What else do we see, guys, in regards to this particular chart of NASDAQ 100? Another thing that I see, guys, is that as much as we have this huge M structure, if you look closely, we also have a smaller M structure at this point, which also has a neckline more or less at that point, right? And as much as I said earlier that the neckline, this huge neckline of this M structure, I hope my drawings are not too confusing. Let me just redraw that, right? I'm talking about this huge blue neckline of this M structure. As much as I said that it's struggling to hold price, right? What may actually happen is, because we have the smaller M structure here, is that price may bounce off this point and then push further down, right? And to some people it may look as if the neckline is no longer relevant, right? Because what may actually happen is the current candlestick may close as a, as a pin bar, and then close below this level over here and then push down, which would make the neckline still relevant. I hope what I'm saying makes sense, guys. So at this point in time, I'm not writing off this particular neckline of this huge M structure, because as I said, price may at this level over here bounce and then push further down, right? And if it does so, I believe that it has to at least come to this level to test it, right? Because it is a W structure and a very strong level of support, as you guys can see. However, guys, having said that, just remember that right at the bottom, we have at this level over here, that area, which represents liquidity that needs to be grabbed by the market, right? However, guys, in as far as buying goes at this point in time, I don't see any opportunities. However, there might be opportunities on the lower time frames, like the H1, the 30-minute chart, as well as the 15-minute chart, right? But for now, I don't see any buying or selling opportunities. What I would suggest you do is you either wait for price to reach this level over here, more or less, and at this point potentially look for selling opportunities, or wait for price to come back to retest the neckline of this W structure that I spoke about here, and at this point you might potentially look for buying opportunities. I'm not necessarily saying that you should sell at this level and buy at this level. I'm saying look for potential opportunities. So I hope my analysis makes sense, guys, and just remember to like the video if you do like it indeed, and just subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. So peace out, guys.